This video is about face and body reading, in particular looking at Comey's testimony before the Congress last Thursday on June 8th, and then afterwards the response by President Trump. And so their statements were quite opposite, and so the question is who is lying or who is trying to deceive. Let's look at Comey first.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated.
So he is standing straight up, looking the guy in the eye, nodding his head, saying, "I do." So he's eager to get his version of the truth out. There's no sign of deceit. His body language is in line with what he's saying.
You felt like in every meeting you needed to document because at some point, using your words, he might put out a non-truthful representation of that meeting. Now,
that's right, Senator. And I, as I said in my written testimony, as FBI director, I interacted with President Obama, and I spoke only twice in 3 years,
so
and didn't document it.
He's sort of very considered in his responses. He's accessing his memory. He's not responding immediately. So these are not just prepared answers. He's thinking, but also not taking a huge amount of time to come up with lies effectively.
Deputy Attorney General, I had one-on-one meeting with President Bush about a very important and difficult national security matter. I didn't write a memo documenting that conversation either. Sent a quick email to my staff to let them know there was something going on.
So he's adding all kinds of details. It's again a sign of truth.
I didn't feel with President Bush the need to document it in that way. Well, my impression, and again, it's my impression, I could always be wrong, but my common sense told...
Again, he's very careful. He's putting out the possibilities that he's wrong. He's debating with himself. He's very careful and considerate.
I mean, that what was going on is either he had concluded or someone had told him that you've already asked Comey to stay and you didn't get anything for it. And that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship. In fact, he asked specifically of loyalty. You've seen the picture of me walking across the blue room. So
he's jumping around. Basically, he's trying to memorize what actually happened. So these are all good signs. He's giving a lot of details. He's using his hand, the illustrators going in line with what he's saying.
What the president whispered in my ear was, "I really look forward to working with you." So after those encounters...
And that was just a few days before you were fired.
Yeah, that was on the Sunday after the inauguration.
So here, he's accessing his memory, he's hesitating, he has to think first. Yes, these are good signs.
Next Friday, I have dinner, and the president begins by wanting to talk about my job. And so I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute.
He's also again using his hands and also his facial expressions, meaning he's not sort of putting too much effort in coming up with the answers. So comes quite naturally. His facial expressions are reflecting what he's actually saying.
3 times you've already asked me to stay or talked about me staying. My common sense, again, I could be wrong, but my common sense told me.
Using his common sense, he says he might be wrong. He's careful. I mean, he's not just claiming he knows it all.
What's going on here is he's looking to get something in exchange for granting my request to stay in the job.
How unusual is it to have?
So also what Comey's doing, he's actually talking a lot. This is quite in contrast to President Trump, who is giving these very short answers and these ambiguous answers. While Comey is giving lots of details, he's talking, he's straightforward. These are all good signs in signaling that someone is telling the truth.
Of a one-on-one dinner with the president, did that strike you as odd?
Yeah, so much so that I assumed there would be others, that he couldn't possibly be having dinner with me alone.
Why didn't you stop?
He's giving a narrative of his mental process back then when Trump was having dinner with him alone and thinking how odd it was.
And say, "Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you."
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation.
So he's coming up, he's trying to find the right words, he doesn't have prepared answers to say it, he's quite humbled about it.
That I just took it in. And the only thing I could think to say, because I was playing in my mind, because I could remember every word he said, I was playing in my mind, what should my response be? And that's why I very carefully chose the word.
And
I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
He hopes there are tapes. That would be normally considered a good sign.
I
Because
remember
it's,
saying, I agree he's a good guy, as a way of saying I'm not agreeing with what you just asked me to do.
again, a lot of details.
Do you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes. The President tweeted on Friday after I got fired.
Again, a
that
lot
I
of
better hope there's
details.
not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine.
Yeah, so he's really hoping there's a tape. He's looking the person straight in the eye. He's using body language, facial expressions, raising his eyebrows, trying to make the person believe what he's saying.
To share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. I'm not being facetious. I hope there are, and I'll consent to the release of for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine.
So yeah, it's a little bit odd. I mean, he's using a friend.
To share the content of the memo.
Here, a quick facial expression of contempt when he talks about the content of the memo.
But myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked.
Here he uses his right hand to have a little dismissive hand gesture when he says he used a friend instead of doing it himself for a variety of reasons. So here it's a little bit odd and it's unclear why he did said.
Findings here, you both hope there's tapes and recordings.
Well, all I can do is hope. The president surely knows whether he takes.
So it's interesting. So the tape seems to be evidence for either Comey and against Trump or for Trump and against Comey. But here you can see that Comey is really hoping to get the tapes out to support the truth. While later you will see that Trump, he's just using it as a distraction, basically as a potential alibi. He's putting it out so people wonder if there are tapes and that this would support Trump. But he's not giving evidence. If he had tapes, why wouldn't he just put them out anyway to support his story? So he's just using it as a distraction, like an alibi, I think.
To me, and if he did, my feelings aren't hurt. Release all the tapes. I'm good with it. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning.
But when you get when a president of the United States in the Oval Office says something like "I hope" or "I suggest" or "Would you," do you take that as a directive?
Yes, it rings in my ear.
So it was again a very considered response. He thought about it. He nodded his head. He moved forward. It wasn't an easy thing to say, because you could interpret it either way as something positive or negative, but he basically gave the version of his truth.
It's kind of, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
I was just going to quote that in 1170, December 29, Henry II said, "Who will rid me of this meddlesome priest?" And then the next day he was...
So yeah, so he's giving some historical anecdotes and information. He's, sharp, knowledgeable.
Because the campaigns we're talking about interacting with the FBI in the course of our work. The Clinton campaign at the time was using
so he's giving a lot of detail,
security review matters, things like that, for what was going on. We were getting to a place where the Attorney General
using his memory to access information, using hand gestures to go along with what he's saying.
And fired if Hillary Clinton had become president.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Thoughtful response.
I've said before.
Shaking his head when he doesn't know the answer.
Painful time.
Talking about his painful
I did what
time.
I had to do. I knew it was going to be very bad for me personally, and the consequence of that might have been, if Hillary Clinton was elected, I might have been terminated. I don't know. I really don't.
Shoulder shrug when he's uncertain about what might have happened if Clinton would have been elected. These are all good signs, because whatever he's saying, it's the body language is supporting it. Okay, here's another part of the testimony. Let's look at that as well. And sorry for my wireless connection, which is very slow.
A lot of this comes down to who should we believe. Do you want to say anything as to why we should believe you?
Probably. My mother raised me not to say things like this about myself, so I'm not going to. I think people should look at the whole body of my testimony.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny. He's giving a very good answer, but he's involving his mother. I mean, he seems such an honest, straightforward guy. I'm surprised he was actually FBI director. I would have thought an FBI director is much more secretive and cunning. But, you know, he seems like a good guy.
Because as I used to say to juries, that when I talked about a witness, you can't cherry pick it. You can't say, I like these things he said, but on this, he's a dirty, rotten liar.
Right.
You got to take it all together, and I've tried to be open and fair to me.
I mean, he's giving a good, considered answer. He's basically saying, you know, you have to look at the whole picture, not just cherry picking. This is also how body and face reading works. You can't just look at one individual aspect. You have to look at clusters of behavior and if they fit together. And this is a very good answer. So now we look at President Trump. So here he is as a Romanian president, and there's a press conference in the end, and this will be also about his response to the Comey testimony. Let's start.
Apologies. That's all right then. Mr. President, this morning on Twitter, you were referring to the testimony of James Comey vindicating you. But I wondered if you could tell us in person, sir, why you feel that his testimony vindicated you when it's really boils down to his word against your word. And if you could also tell us, sir, do tapes exist of your conversations with him?
Well, I'll tell you about that maybe sometime in the very near future.
So if they're tapes, he would have just said they're tapes. To me, it just seems a distraction from the actual issue, trying to get time between the actual issue which arose and the conclusion. In the end, when we find out there were no tapes, we don't know what the issue was about originally.
No obstruction. He's a leaker, but we want to get back to running our great country. Jobs.
So he's labeled as a leaker.
Want them to disappear
now he
fast.
distracts, goes to the
North
general.
Korea, big problem. Middle East, a big problem.
Now he's going back to the main
that's
issues.
What I am focused on. That's what I have been focused on. But yesterday showed no collusion, no obstruction. We are doing really well. That was an excuse by the Democrats.
Praising
who lost
himself.
An election that some people think they shouldn't have lost.
Going back to the
It's almost
election.
impossible for the Democrats to lose the Electoral College, as you know. You have to run up the whole East Coast.
Completely
and you have to win
distraction
everything
of
as a
the
Republican,
actual
and
question.
That's just what we did. So it was just an excuse. But we were very, very...
So one forgets what the question was about.
And frankly, James Comey confirmed a lot of what I said. And some of the things that he said just weren't true. Thank you very much.
So now I think he's asked about the
Mr.
visa waiver
President,
program.
Were there any discussion
for
about the
Romania?
visa waiver program for Romania? Is there a time frame for including our country in this program? Thank you.
We didn't
Yes.
discuss it. We didn't discuss
So
it, but
he
there
says
would be certainly... it
they
would
didn't
be
discuss
something
it.
We will discuss, Mr. President.
I
But,
mentioned this issue, and I also mentioned it during other meetings I had, because this is important.
So President Trump says they haven't discussed it, and the Romanian president completely contradicts him by saying they discussed it or he mentioned it, and he mentioned it before.
For us, it's important for Romanians want to come to the United States, and you see, more and more people come.
More and more
President
people come.
from Romania.
Trump turns
the
away, and now he
United
turns
States.
to him.
Some come as tourists, some come for business, and those who come for business should be encouraged. So the matter of visa waiver would be probably important to discuss, and we all hope that we will advance on this.
Good.
Yeah, Trump didn't like it.
Oh, I look at those hands up there, President. Do you have this in Romania too? I don't know.
Yeah. I got the microphone.
Now he's making
If
fun
you
of the
only-
people.
If I could only sell that. If I
The
could only
journalists.
sell it. Who would like to ask? Should I take one of the killer networks that treat me so badly as fake news? Should I do that?
So just saying he wishes to make money out of it, or he wish he could make money out of it, is very problematic. Combining his desire to make money with politics and disseminating the results to the general public and discussing things with the media.
Huh? Go ahead, John. Be fair, John.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember how nice you used to be
Now
before
he's
I ran?
implying
Such a nice man.
the media is
Always fair.
fake.
Mr. President, I want to get back to James Comey's testimony. You suggested he didn't tell the truth in everything he said. He did say under oath that you told him to let the Flynn, you said you hoped the Flynn investigation, you could like...
I didn't...
Unfortunately, now the journalist has a lot of speech errors, potentially because if he is intimidated by what Trump says before and making fun of him. So now he has these speech errors, and so he can't really finish his question properly.
Say that.
So Trump...
So he lied about that.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, I will tell you.
So Trump just says he didn't say that. It's a very ambiguous statement. It could mean that Comey was lying, or it could mean that he didn't say it the way the journalist said it with the speech errors.
I didn't say that.
And did he ask you to pledge his
And there'd be nothing wrong if I did say it, according to
now
everybody
he's confusing
that I've read
the issue
today,
by
I did not say
diverting to something
and
else.
did he ask for a pledge of loyalty from you? That's another thing he said.
So he's now making another speech error saying that Comey asked for a pledge of allegiance. So there's some confusion about who asked that question potentially.
No, he did not.
So he said those things under oath.
So now he says he did not. Obviously, if someone asked for pledging allegiance, then it would have been Trump and not Comey.
Would you be willing to speak under oath to give your version of these events?
100.
So again, the journalist couldn't finish a sentence, lots of speech errors. So Trump just says 100%. It's very ambiguous because the sentence wasn't even finished.
I didn't say under oath. I hardly know the man. I'm not going to say, I want you to pledge allegiance. Who would do that? Who would ask a man to pledge allegiance under oath?
So now he's talking about pledging allegiance under oath. I don't think it was meant to be under oath, the Pledge of Allegiance.
I mean, think of it. I hardly know the man. It doesn't make sense. No, I didn't say that, and I didn't say the other.
So if Robert Mueller...
So saying that he didn't say it and not the other one as well. Again, it's not clear to what he really refers to.
Wanted to speak with you about that.
I would be glad to tell him exactly what I just told you, Jim.
He didn't say anything, so repeating exactly to the person what he just said doesn't mean very much.
Be hinting that there are recordings of those conversations.
I'm not hinting anything. I'll tell you about it over a very short period of time.
If there were any tapes, he would have already disclosed them, if they would, particularly if they would prove his point.
Over a fairly short period of time.
Are there tapes, sir?
Oh, you're going to be very disappointed when you hear the answer. Don't worry.
So it's very funny. Basically saying he doesn't have tapes. The whole thing with the tapes was probably just a distraction. So in the end, you don't even know. If it turns out there weren't any tapes, you don't even know what the issue was about the tapes. It was just to get a distance between the actual issue and the conclusion weeks later. Comey is very straightforward in terms of giving answers, giving lots of details, while Trump is just giving these ambiguous, very short answers to incomplete questions and almost interrupting. So in the end, these answers by him don't mean anything. Okay, so that was the comparison between the two, and I hope you liked it, and talk to you later.